All right, Nick, let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. The Packers have had a pretty exciting offseason, a lot of additions added to this team, but there's one guy in particular now that they have gotten the chance to see is looking really good for the Packers. Very impressive. I think he has a good niche role for this Packers team. I think it'll be very exciting come season. We'll get into all that in just a second here, but first, I'm Andrew, that's Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, one Packers player in particular, now that we get to see him in training camp, healthy, ready to hit the field, already looking very impressive, very good, first impressions for this team. Of course, we're talking about none other than the Swiss Army knife, multifaceted weapon, Savion Williams, out of TCU for the Packers, looking really good. Let's get into the articles, then we'll get to the data on the other side. So this first is from Athlon Sports. It says earlier this offseason, Matt LaFleur on Williams saying, "You love the versatility." Packers head coach Matt LaFleur said, "The ability to go in there and play wildcat quarterback, get in the backfield and play halfback or jet sweeps. You find different ways to get him the ball because he's big, powerful, explosive, and guys just have a tendency to bounce off of him. He's just scratching the surface of the playmaker that he can become." I think that's really interesting, really great stuff when you want to hear a head coach talk about a player like that. Means they've got some good plans, but now we've started to see him early on. It's just a very quick snippet from their first, practices here, but it's very exciting nonetheless. It says this from Lombardi Ab. It says Savion Williams left no doubt on opening day of training camp. Various reporters in attendance placed a spotlight not only on his spectacular catch, but also the overall impression Williams made in his first practice of the summer. It's the Packers' first real glimpse at what Williams can do. He was only recently cleared from a shoulder injury that limited him through the offseason program. So, first looks at Savion Williams. He's impressing, made a big flashy play, which is great, but overall impressions of Williams are good, and I think he sounds like a multifaceted playmaker for the Packers. And when you compare him to some other Swiss Army knife type players in this draft, I think he compares very, very favorably. That brings us to our next graph here. And this shows Savion Williams versus other dual threat players here. And it's not fair because Savion Williams actually a triple threat player here. He actually threw a touchdown pass, but no one else did that. So no use in comparing that. But dual threat player, Savion Williams. First up, we have him versus Brashard Smith, the big time playmaker in Kansas City out of SMU. He looks really good. And then the guy out of Texas for Dallas, Jaden Blue, also looks very, very good as well. But when you compare some production elements for these players, Savion Williams looks really great compared to him. So first up, we're talking about the running game, what he brings there. And Savion Williams in yards per carry is better than Brashard Smith, better than Jaden Blue. He has 6.3 yards per carry to Brashard Smith's 5.7 and Jaden Blue's 5.4 yards per carry. So good. He's productive in the run game when he gets the ball. He has great yards per carry, but let's look at the passing game. We're saying dual threat guys. Is he good in both aspects? And when you look at his yards per reception, again, much better than the other two guys. 10.2 yards per reception for Savion Williams, 8.2 for Brashard Smith, 8.9 for Jaden Blue. So again, doing great in the run game, great in the receiving game. But let's see how explosive he is, mainly in the run game, the big plays he makes. Well, he's got the production here. What does he look like? Explosive runs per carry. So out of all of the carries they have, what percentage of those were explosive runs? And when you look at Savion Williams, this to me is where he really jumps off the page and where he will fit into this Packers team. 21.5% explosive runs per carry. So 21.5% of the time when he touched the ball as a running back, he had an explosive run. I think that's incredible. You look at Brashard Smith, 9.6% of the time. Jaden Blue, very explosive player in his own right, but only 15% of the time when he touched the ball was an explosive play, a run over 10 plus yards. So again, Savion Williams looking very good. I think he can be a very good gadget-esque type player for the Packers where he doesn't have to fit into one role day one. It actually probably be smarter to have this guy play a little bit of running back, go out for passes out of the backfield, play a little bit of receiver. Even like I said, play some wildcat quarterback. Matt LaFleur mentioned that. I think this guy can do everything, and he looks very, very good as well. So I think this is a great move for the Packers. I'm really excited that the first glimpses of Williams are strong. And I think this is going to be a good move come this season. But I want to hear what you think on this one, Nick. Before we get to you, though, Packers fans, in the comment section below, we're talking dual threat players. We're talking about guys that can do multiple things. There's been a couple through Packers history, been a couple more recently as well. What are your thoughts on your favorite dual threat Packers player of all time? I'm not going to make you narrow it down just to running back, wide receiver. It could really be anything. Throw some tight ends in there, whatever the case is. Who's your favorite Packers dual threat player of all time? In the comment section below. And while you're down there, check out our Substack newsletter. It's in the description of the video. It's free, cost you nothing, and all it does is give you tons of extra football content to tide you over to the season. Great articles, great content we like. And if you have a great dual threat Packers player, you might see yourself in there because we highlight our favorite comment of the week as well. So check that out and subscribe. It costs you nothing. It really helps us out. But nonetheless, Nick, enough for me. What are your thoughts on everything here for the Packers?
So first and foremost, to answer your question, I'm going to go with the Golden Boy. I'm going to go really retro here. How about Paul Hornung, Hall of Famer, Heisman Trophy winner out of Notre Dame, had the record for most points scored in a season until LaDainian Tomlinson broke that, I believe, in 2006, 2007, 2008, that kind of time frame when he was with the San Diego Chargers. Hornung had, I think, 176 points in a single season. Monster, triple, quadruple threat guy in terms of running back, receiver, kicker, could pass option like you mentioned here when it comes to Williams. He's one of the all-time greats. Doesn't get as much publicity as some other guys. He deserves a lot of credit. But when it comes to Savion Williams, I think there's a lot to really like, and I think there's a reason Packers fans are so excited with what they're seeing in training camp. Obviously, Williams was dealing with some injuries, so he didn't get a lot of mini camp and OTAs. And one of the things that can happen when it comes to athletic specimens like Williams, they come out of school, you get a certain amount of expectation of, okay, they're a great set of tools, great amount of athletic gifts. How will it translate? And usually we rely on the rookie mini camps, the OTAs, the mandatory mini camps to get an eye for and say, okay, can it translate? Can he handle it? And the fact that there were some injuries, it kind of delayed that. And you're like, a little nervous here. Is he going to be a big part of this offense? Based on early reports on a training camp, granted it's early, it looks like he'll acclimate just fine and play a key role in this team. And it's important to understand what Williams' role is. Obviously, coming out of school, everyone to a man has pretty much said, oh, he's the next Cordero Patterson, which would obviously be awesome for the Green Bay Packers. But it means more than just adding a player to your roster of Patterson's caliber, or certainly a young Cordero Patterson's caliber. It's understanding the fit and the current structure of the Packers offense, right? Everyone knows this. It's become sort of a cliche at this point, but the Packers have a lot of number two receivers, a lot of great playmakers, but no elite guy, no number one guy. We'll have to see about Matthew Golden. Something may happen there. But until we see something from Golden, we can look at the Packers rosters and be totally honest and say a lot of number twos, a lot of number threes, right? They don't have that number one guy. And one of the things that can happen when you have a number one guy is it can break a defensive structure, right? If you have an elite wide receiver, it forces defenses to double him or rotate coverages, and it opens up other opportunities. Or if they don't rotate coverages, he's a walking mismatch because there's no corner that can cover that number one wide receiver one-on-one. The Packers don't have that walking mismatch. They don't have that matchup nightmare that they can create for their offense. Now, LaFleur is really smart, and obviously Jordan Love's incredibly talented. They're able to function just fine without it, but I think that's one of the things holding back their offense. When you have a guy like Williams coming into the fold who can be that Cordero Patterson, he is a walking matchup nightmare because you don't know if he gets in the huddle, if you're the opposing defense, is he going to line up in tailback and carry the football like a running back? Is he going to line up in the slot? Is he going to line up out wide? You're going to have to adjust for that and account for it. So if the Packers go into their huddle and they have three wide receivers and one tight end, and then they bring in Williams, they could come out in 11 personnel with Williams as the running back and run it right at you. Or they could go five wide, right? And you have to be prepared for both of the circumstances. You either have to go very light with 7 defensive backs, or you have to be prepared to stop the run in almost a base defense, right? You have to do that at the same time with the same personnel. That's really hard to do. That's creating mismatch nightmares, mismatch opportunities for your offense, right? There's a couple ways you can create those mismatches. The easiest way is to have an elite player. The other way to do it is have a guy that can be incredibly versatile and be a playmaker in a bunch of different spots. Depending on what happens with Golden, maybe Golden can become that elite player. But in the interim, we have a guy like Savion Williams emerging with the Packers who can be that matchup nightmare, create all kinds of problems for the opposing defenses. And when people forget, this Packers offense, obviously they ran the football really well, but their passing grade last year, they were not the most efficient passing team. They finished right around the middle of the pack according to PFF. Now, I know Jordan Love was injured and missed a lot of time, but even when you factor in when Jordan Love played and was healthy, they were borderline top 10, top 12 team. When you've got a very quality quarterback and you still have a good amount of top receivers, even though they're not number ones, they're still quality guys. And of course, head coach LaFleur is a really smart offensive mind. Obviously, you would expect to be a little bit better in terms of passing efficiency, and certainly that would be the case when you have a great running game. You would think those two would work hand in hand. Didn't quite work that way for the Green Bay Packers. I think it's because opposing defenses, the better defenses like the Philadelphia Eagles, for example, like we saw in the postseason, they kind of knew what they were getting personnel wise, scheme wise, and they could kind of match up and say, okay, our corner can match up their receiver, our linebacker can match up against that tight end, and so on and so forth. And the Packers weren't able to create any opportunities to exploit. You look at Savion Williams, like I said, he can be that walking exploiter. He can be the guy that forces defenses. If you go back to the Philadelphia example, if Williams is in the game, like, okay, we have to be prepared to stop the run. But if we go heavy with linebackers and we end up in a situation where linebackers covering Williams, we're giving up a touchdown. Or if we bring in a corner, so that way a corner can cover Williams and it's actually a running play with Williams, we're going to get gashed for 7, 8 yards a carry, right? Suddenly it blows that entire defense up. That's what Williams can bring. I'm excited to see he's making big plays. I'm excited to see he's off to a good start. But I think the most important thing here is that he's healthy. He's integrated into the offense. So that way he can very quickly become a matchup nightmare for the Packers opposition.
Yeah, Nick, you talk about the versatility and flexibility. And one thing I like about Savion Williams versus some of these other guys that come into these roles is when coming out of college, it's like, you look at these guys and it's like, okay, well, it was Jaden Blue's case, a running back who was, sometimes a wide receiver, or as like a wide receiver who played a couple snaps at running back. They've got some versatility, but they're more than they're leaning more one way than the other. But when you look at Savion Williams, this guy very impressive. 219 snaps at the running back position, 290 snaps at the wide receiver position. So pretty balanced, a fair amount of snaps at each position in his own right. And he was successful at both. He had 6 touchdowns in each, 13 total, 6 rushing, 6 receiving, 1 passing touchdown. So this guy, very balanced, a lot of great stuff he brings to the table. I just think overall, like you said, this could be a guy that Matthew Golden, he might develop into that big time playmaker, the mismatch type of guy. But in the short term, Savion Williams already showing that he can be a mismatch. He can be that game changer type of player to come into this offense. And in very limited reps, we're seeing that he's very effective at TCU. I think this guy is going to be someone to keep our eye on throughout training camp, throughout the offseason. But early signs show Savion Williams, one heck of a pick for the Green Bay Packers.